Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to WOR Tier 1 here for Season 21, where we today head off for Round 10 of the Championship to Abu Dhabi, a brilliant circuit, a track that really promotes strategy and overtaken as well. I'm sure we're going to have a really good event here this evening. Of course, I'm Nathan Richards in the commentary box alongside, once again, Joseph Black. Joseph, welcome back. You've been here, I think, 3 races on the bounce now. Welcome in. How are you doing?
Yeah, something along those lines. I'm doing very well, and I'm very excited to get going. I mean, Abu Dhabi can throw up some very interesting strategic races. I think it's one of those where it can really just, it can really just make or break a race, one lap or another. So I'm very excited to see what the drivers are going to be capable of this evening.
Certainly, and of course, last time out in Las Vegas, we had a race which really turned around the championship. So Julian Klaffenbach, who was leading by over 20 points, now leads by only 7 to Jarno Opmeer, who had a really good race in Vegas. And of course, it was Klaffenbach who had a DNF after colliding with the wall at turn 5. It's Nicholas Longuet who still sits third in the standings, despite not scoring any points in the last 6 races. Then fourth will be Ismail Fassi on 67 points, and then Otis Lawrence reigning off the top 5 on 55, followed by Joris Krozen, Shanika Clay, Josh Ido, Tamas Gal, and then the Williams of Ruben Pedreño reigning off the top 10. And of course, a quick look at last week. It was Thomas Ronhaar who took the victory, a brilliant race from him, and it was from the back of the grid as well, and took a 3-second win over Otis Lawrence, with Jarno Opmeer closely behind in third place with Josh Ido and Istvan Pukki in the top 5. Then we had Krozen, Barrett, Hardy, Hoffland, and then Daniele Parodi scoring his, I believe, first points of the season. But of course, today we head off to a very a track that I like a lot personally. Joseph, I think it's a brilliant one on the game. You tend to get a lot of racing, a lot of overtaking, and qualifying tends to be very close as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. I think qualifying is really what makes some of these races around Abu Dhabi, where you can just make sure that you are in prime opportunity to take something. The overtaking opportunities are kind of a little bit limited around the majority of this circuit, which means they're going to fight extra hard through those opportunities that they will get down at the end of the long back straight being the main opportunity. And then you've got the chicane. Out of the chicane is another huge chance to make your way to get through with another DRS zone. Of course, we've got the traditional inter or wet runs that the drivers are competing at the moment. It won't be very long that they'll be doing this as they make their way out. Interesting to see, actually, that on that topic of conversation about qualifying around Abu Dhabi, Thomas Ronhaar looks like he might actually want to participate in this session today. He's not qualified the last couple of rounds, but it looks like today he's changing from the status quo.
Well, he was on a set of the... Never mind, we got it wrong. I was going to say he was on a set of the wet tyres, so I don't think that means he will participate, and he does choose to retire. And of course, Thomas Ronhaar will be starting from the back of the field. We have Jarno Opmeer on track, Jan Halliday, Joris Krozen, Istvan Pukki as well, all looking to get their first lap times of the session underway, of course, all on a set of the intermediate tyres. But we do have a debutant here in Tier 1 this evening. Rens Thomasson, of course, took the Console Tier 1 Championship back in Season 19, recently joined the R8G team as a development driver, and now he's getting himself involved in the Tier 1 action. So very good luck to Rens tonight. Hopefully he can deliver some brilliance for himself and R8G. As we say that, he's now heading out onto track on a set of the soft tyres. So a little bit earlier here, Joseph, than what we normally see, but I suppose if you're making your first race, sometimes just get out and get a lap done and dusty quickly.
Yeah, get the nerves out when the pressure isn't really on you at the moment, and that's exactly what I think he's going to be trying to do, as Cruising looks like he might be going for a lap on the intermediates, which isn't necessarily worth it at this point in time, but, you know, whatever. Rens is going to try and shake off those nerves with this first lap, and he'll see what he's going to be able to do in that car. I know that we've got a number of reserves across the course of the season who've made their debuts, and some who've become mainstays, the likes of Jan Halliday, who's also out on the circuit at the moment. It's very much just getting rid of those nerves in this Q1 session, trying to get a decent lap on the board, and then hoping that everybody else has maybe a problem at the end of the session. We've seen the last couple of weeks a few skirmishes at the end of the session where the peak times go in, so some of the drivers maybe haven't gone through with the full opportunity of setting a lap as they normally would. So I think Ren's just trying to get a lap on the board. I thought Ronha was going to go around for another lap. We don't usually see him in sort of on the wets or the inters, but he did grace his presence for half a lap, and now he's gone. And we'll be back in the race session. So that's one driver out already in this Q1 session. That means that there's only 4 spots for drivers to drop out. There's a little bit more margin for error, but still not much at all.
Certainly, and the first car that will go for a lap here on the soft tyres will be Rens Thomason. We'll see what he can do as he heads his way into the final corner, turn 16, and then power down towards turn number 1 to begin his opening lap of the session. Of course, turn 1 here, all the way to the right-hand side, get the car onto the brakes, down to 5th gear, back on the power through in towards turns 2, 3 and 4. Of course, it's flat all the way through these opening corners, and then of course harsh onto the brakes in towards turn number 5. Normally we see the drivers remove the I think it's polystyrene markables. They're gone already, and of course normally they'd run into them if they're trying to take their optimal line, hence why they have disappeared. It just makes it a bit easy for the drivers to take the optimal line into the braking zones. As into turn 6 goes Thomason. Of course, a very harsh chicane. I think definitely bogged down on the edges of the corner there, flicked in and had to try and carry some speed through as he heads out of turn 8 and then down towards turn number 9. A very, very interesting corner. Easy sometimes to go for a bit of an up and under when it comes to overtaking in the race. In qualifying, it's all about carrying the speed through the corner. And of course we head down towards turns 10, 11 and 12. A triple right-hander here. Of course, once again, harsh on the brakes, down to third gear. Back on the power through 13 and 14. Lots of, you don't get much grip through here. Very low grip section. Very easy to lose the rear as they make their way through into 15 and then into turn 16, the final corner on this circuit. We'll see what Rens Thomason can do to open up the timings. It's a 1:21.455, a nice banker from Rens Thomason.
Certainly is a decent banker, especially in this Q1 session where the track is at its freshest. Of course, when we get to Q3, the times will be slashed down as the lines have been formed and the rubber has been laid down on the track. But not too bad from Rens Thomason to kick off proceedings for this evening, and he gets a 21.4 to kick us off. That means that he is slightly on an alternate run plan to what everybody else is on. I think that might come from being that fresh to Tier 1, because that is his first lap in the tier, and I think he's not hoping to make it to Q3. He's not quite got those lofty ambitions, so he doesn't mind using up a set of soft tyres now, just to set himself up in this session. But of course, he will not need any new sets of soft for the race session because we will have a restart. So I'm not sure how many sets he's going to have left after he's used one set up. But of course, I don't think that he's going to have enough if he wants to make it to that Q3 session. But you never know, he could have gone for that softer set. I don't 100% remember what tyres they look like, what tyres they pick, how many soft compound tyres they pick up. But yeah, I mean, it's not a bad banker for Rens. Everybody else just waiting in the pit lane, and Rens has actually been able to do a full run and nobody is out of the pit lane just yet. Just over 10 minutes to go, and that's essentially a free lap on the board.
Certainly, and as Rens will head in, I'm sure we'll start to see a couple of cars make their way out. It's normally around that 10-minute mark in Q1 that we see cars look to head back out and get their first lap times on the board. As I can see a mechanic heading into the pit lane, and it will be, I believe, a Alpine of Danny Berejne. And I don't normally like to talk about PSGL here, but I noticed in PSGL last night he went out first every single time, apart from one run in Q2. So it seems that around this track, Danny Berejne always likes to go out onto track first, and following him is Jan Halliday, of course. Got many fans in the chat, as always, the Pesa Ultras, we like to call them, as Jan's now heading his way into turn 5. In the chat, guys, I can see a lot of Czech fans. Let us know where you think Jan Halliday will qualify this evening. Go early and give us your predictions. Joseph, any predictions for you for Jan Halliday this evening? Surely got to be Q3, hasn't it?
Oh, I think it's Q3 at a minimum for Jan. He's done so well in Q1 and Q2 in every single session he's participated in so far, and it's just about getting over that extra line and finding that extra tenth of a second he needs in the final session. So I do think Jan will be making it to the top 10. Whether he's going to go any further than that, I'm not 100% sure. Chat's saying top 5 for sure, but I agree with Versus. I agree P7 is, I think, what he's going to qualify in. And for Sean Lee, who's just asked where the title standings are, they are in the folder that has just been pinned at the very top of your chat, or it'll be in the description as well. Everybody, apart from Joni Tormel, are now out on the circuit and setting their out laps, trying to get those tyres warmed up to get the opportunity to have the optimal conditions for their race. Of course, it's going to be a hot circuit. It's Abu Dhabi. That's why we race at night, to cool it down a little bit. So there's still a bit of tyre warm up to do, and we'll see what the first runs are going to be. Danny Berejne will be the first driver to start his proper lap, apart from Rens Thomason, and he heads around towards the first corner now. And the Alpine, he's going to see what he can do. He's going to hope to beat that 21.4 at a bare minimum, and he heads through this first sector. You don't want to push too much. You don't want to use too much in this first sector, which is why you may well not see the best times in that sector. But that is because you're setting yourself up for sector number 2, which is the make or break sector for a lap. You want to open up the steering on the exit, open up the ERS, and then the DRS when you get to the detection point, and then you want to pretty much run off of the circuit, run the lines as they cut in towards the next braking zone into the chicane. Danny Berejne heads through it. Is he going to take out the bollard? No, because the bollard's actually not there, and he heads out on the exit for the DRS for the second time on this lap, and keeps tight to the apex before sweeping out to the outside line, and just coming through the corner with as much speed as he can carry as possible. You want to be in about 4th or 5th gear at that time, and you want to be basically 3/4 on the throttle. Then into the final sector. It's a tough, tricky section. This is where qualifying is so important. In the race, you're not going to be able to overtake here, but qualifying, it is so good to see the drivers in their flow state around the final couple of corners, and Danny will come through the final one, and this is going to be a competitive lap time here in with Thomas, and it's going to be 2.5 tenths quicker for Danny Berejne.
Certainly a 21.211 for Berejne. Next across the line will be Jake Benham, a 2.83 for him. Of course, making his return. I don't think has been here since round 4 this season, as Otis Lawrence goes just behind his teammate. Jan Halliday pops into P4. Longate jumps ahead of him with a 0.336, as many cars are heading through up towards the line. Shanika Clay up into 4th place in his yellow and black car. Philip Prejnader has had an invalidation, as a few more cars making their way through. Duncan Hoffland up into the top 5 as well for Aston Martin. I'm just keeping an eye here on Julian Klaffenbach, of course. I'm a championship leader by 6 points heading into round 10, as Ismail Fassi matches that time of Shanika Clay. We'll see now what Julian Klaffenbach can set on the board. Of course, we've seen him very high in qualifying in the past few rounds. Up to the line, only P10 for Julian Klaffenbach. A 121.373, a 10.5 away from the lap time of Danny Berejne. As we do see Jan Watmere jump up to 2nd place. Of course, he is the driver chasing Julian in that championship, with Joris Krozen in 3rd. And I did see a message there from Jordan, as always in the chat, over here in here and in PSGL, saying, didn't Jan get 40 seconds of penalties last time? You all hyped him up. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, Jan Halliday did get all of his penalties removed, if I remember correctly. Because I saw that and thought, how's he got 18 seconds removed? Well, it seems he did. So, yes, indeed. There you go, Jordan. Have that one.
It's the Jan Halliday effect, isn't it? Just he got those 18 seconds removed for pure aura alone. And, well, at the moment, he's 14th, so a lot of work to do for him, a lot of work to do for Julian Klaffenbach, as you said. But, I mean, at the same time, it is just the first runs in Q1, so it's not necessarily the most representative times. Renz wasn't able to improve on his 121.455, as Otis Lawrence thinks he's done enough to get out of this Q1 session. I think that's bold, because there's only about 2 tenths in it between himself and being knocked out. Philip Prejnader is on a lap, but he has invalidated, so he's not actually on a lap, and Josh Edo never set his lap time. He also came into the pits. So 2 drivers without lap times. Benches Abokonya, I wouldn't say with the most representative one. Rens Thomason with time to find on his. I think it's bold that Otis Lawrence has retired here. He clearly doesn't have faith in those at the very bottom. And, well, a couple of runs to go. We will see whether that was a good decision to retire from Otis, or one that he may well regret. I think it's going to get close for him. I think it might get close for Joris as well. They clearly don't think anyone's going to be able to find that. Literally 1.5 tenths, which with track evolution shouldn't be too bad.
No, I think Otis should be safe. I'd be surprised if he wasn't, because the point was a very competitive lap time in Q1. And of course, we near the bottom, you do start to see a bit of a spread in the grid. I'd say the only cars that really need to go out, I'd say, is probably Shanaka Clay, Ismail Fassi downwards, all in the low to mid point threes, and then of course you've got a few in the point fours as well, the likes of Halliday, Tormala and Rens Thomason, who I think could actually make his way into Q2 here, because of course he had the worst conditions on his lap where he set the 121.455. He's not that far away, well, not even a tenth away from P12, so could certainly be a decent opening qualifying session for him if he can find the time. Of course, Bench Chabakonyi, only a 21.6. We expect to see him a little bit further up. And then, of course, Philip Presneder and Josh Ido without lap times on the board, both with a lot of pressure heading into the final runs of Q1. So the top four retire. Everybody else at the moment looks like they will be going out once more for a lap time, as all the cars now flurry out of the pit lane. Benham retires from 5th. So we'll see who else goes out. But the first car on track will be a green car, and it will be Jan Halliday.
Yeah, Jan Halliday out on the circuit nice and early, trying to set himself up for the final lap. 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock, so he's got plenty of time to set himself up well. And Goedendorp and Tormala, as well as Philip Presneder, come out as well. I think Presneder is going to be under a lot of pressure here. So is Josh Ido, because those are the two drivers without times. They haven't even got a banker to fall back on. Instead, it's going to be all down to this one lap. What are they going to be able to do? Zabo Konyi is going to be the same thing. Thomason's had more experience out on the circuit than any other driver, because he's done pretty much 2 full laps. He did dive into the end. He did dive into the pit lane on the end of his previous one, but he's basically got 2 full laps under his belt, and he finds himself 16th. So he knows where he's going to be losing that time and where he's going to be able to gain just a little chunk of time. We will see what they're going to have the chance to do as Julian Klaffenbach, the final driver, out of the pit lane. So you see everybody 6th down to 20th, apart from Thomas Ronhaar out on that circuit. So Ronhaar will qualify last in this session. But we still have Presneder, we still have Ido without lap times on the board, and everybody else very tightly packed together. 6th down to 15th, split by less than a tenth of a second. So I think this one is going to go right down to the very wire in the end of this Q1 session. I think there may well be a few upsets.
I'm sure there certainly will be. Of course, Julian Klaffenbach at a little bit of risk at the moment, and of course a Q1 knockout would be very harmful for him, especially since Jarno Otmir is in the point twos in 2nd place, and if he can carry that on into Q2, could certainly be a top 10 for him. So Julian would love to try and do the same. And the first car to go for a run will be Joni Tormala in his interesting pink and brown liveries. He makes his way through the first sector. Of course, Joni has been here for a very, very long time. Not often we see him up in the top 10 and scoring high points, but he's always here, and he's always got a lot of experience to give to many of our upcoming racers as he makes his way out of turn 5 and the long run with DRS down towards turn 6 and 7 at the chicane. We'll see what he can do in that opening in the 2nd sector as he, of course, follows the white lines down into the braking zone, of course, around 100 metres before you head onto the anchors. Then back on the power out of turn 7 through the bit of a kink at turn number 8, and then you prepare yourself to launch into turn 9. And we'll see what Joni Tormala can do in sector 2. It's going to be down by 25 thousandths. Not ideal at all here for Joni Tormala. And of course he needs to find at least a tenth or two to be safe heading into Q2. Currently needs to find all of that in one sector alone. As Istvan Pukki didn't go back out, he will stay 6th fastest here in this session. I'm sure that will be safe. And Joni Tormala now in heavy risk, as that is an invalidation. That is not good at all for Joni Tormala, and that could certainly see him out of Q1. A few more cars still looking to set their final laps. We've got Bench Chabakonyi here, 17th currently, as Tormala will solidify in 15th. Goedendorp goes 5th. Brilliant lap time for him as Bench Chabakonyi sees himself out of Q2 as well. Q1, sorry, a big shame for him, as that's going to be Philip Presneder up into P12. Knocks out Joni Tormala. Longe goes quickest with a 21.135. Halliday joins him up at the top with a 148, as we see Shanaka Clay jump up into 9th.
We certainly do. Shanaka Clay now dropped down to 10th place as Duncan Hoffland finds his way into 3rd spot onto the 2nd row of the grid. Ismail Fassi around the final corner. Is he going to find his way into the top 10? It doesn't really matter at this point. He is confirmed through, but he does anyway. He finds himself up to 4th. Hardy and Klaffenbach, the final 2 drives across the line. Can Klaffenbach save himself and knock out Hardy? Yes, he can. And Julian Klaffenbach is going to find his way through to this Q2 session, knocking out Tico Hardy, who dropped out at the very end of that qualifying session. And actually, I mean, it's basically knocking out your what would be potentially your teammate for the next esports season, both affiliated to Sauber at this point in time. But that is going to be the end of that Q1 session. 5 drivers knocked out, 15 to go.
Certainly, 1 R8G in, 1 R8G out. Of course, we did lose there. Hardy, Thomason, Tormula, Shabokonyi, and then Thomas Ronhar, who left on his own accord. But there we go. We go into Q2 now, and the nerves are probably starting to settle a little bit more now for Julian Klaffenbach, knowing he's still got the pace, and that opening lap wasn't much to represent him and his pace around Abu Dhabi. As we now get ready for another session, of course. The bottom 5 drop out again, that being P11 down to P15. And I think looking at this top 15 at the moment here, Joseph, we're definitely going to have a couple of upsets here. And I think it's all about when you set the lap time, not if you can set the lap time, because if you leave it till the last second and you're one of the last to cross that line, the pressure will be very, very high.
Very much will. And well, I'll take the example of Renz Thomason. He set a decent lap time first off, but throughout the rest of the session, he wasn't actually able to improve all that much on it, as we're seeing a number of drivers already coming out of the pit lane with pretty much the session just having gotten underway. So they're all going to filter through, and potentially this is going to be on the worn tyres, so it's not going to be that effectual in this session, but potentially as well. I mean, the fact that they're all coming out early may well spell something, or it may well just be the case that they want to get a lap time on the board because they feel the pressure. All the drivers were tight in that final qualifying session. There was about 0.06 of a second in between the drivers in the top 10 and the drivers who were knocked out, so it's very, very close, and we're going to get some quite close skirmishes on the circuit. Hopefully nobody's going to be getting any damage. That bollard's going to get a lot of damage, or that braking board even is going to get a decent chunk, as it's looking like all these drivers are fighting for track position, but weirdly enough, none of them want to be first.
Yes, I saw someone say rain, question mark. I don't think there's going to be rain, but they all just want to get their lap underway. Of course, the first one out being another green car. I'm just trying to field through and see who it is. I think it is again Jan Halliday. Of course, has been out first a couple of times so far in this session, and doing a great job of just removing all the bollards and the brake marker boards and everything that you possibly can that can infringe you on your lap, as Jan now heads his way into turn 16 to start his first lap of Q2. Of course, 13 minutes to go in this session. You normally get 3 runs here. You'll get 1 run there, then they'll go out with about maybe 8 minutes to go, or 7, then they'll go out right at the end for one last run, as Jan Halliday yet again removing all of the marker boards that are in the way. Let's have a look here at Joris Kroos, and we haven't seen much of him this evening, but he's been very quick so far as he now heads his way down towards turn 5 and already burnt the battery. So I think they're just going for an outlap here. I don't think they're actually looking to set a lap time, because Joris he's on turn 5 and he's got 30% battery.
Which is weird, because they've come out straight away. They've all come out straight away, and they are going around for, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all burning their battery early on. It's very weird to see them all out at this time. Not quite sure what they've done. I think some drivers went for it, and some other drivers just went, yeah, why not? We can use up a used set of tyres. But we have got a couple of invalidations. Jan Halliday being the first one who's not going to be setting a lap time in this first part of qualifying 2. But everybody else, I think, is going to dive into the pit lane, so I don't think it's going to matter all that much. And then we'll have 2 laps, potentially, maybe even 1, for the drivers to get an opportunity to set themselves up for the Q3 session. And I think the second lap in Q2, I think, is going to be important. I think they're going to go out on new tyres, simply because if they are going to be on those worn tyres, as Longue comes up to line 21.6, so these are definitely used tyre runs. If they're going to come out to the second lap on Q2 and worn tyres, and then they invalidate, which is relatively easy to do around Abu Dhabi, especially when the pressure's on at the end of Q2, I think there may well be the case that the drivers are going to take the second run a little bit more seriously than the third.
Certainly, as we just see a few more cars now finishing their their first laps in Q2. It's Longue that goes quickest. Dio goes even quicker there by a 10.5 with a 121.446, and then Jarno Otmir as well will head across the line, goes 4th for now. But of course, these lap times are all on a set of the used tyres. It really means nothing in terms of what lap time you set at this current time. And of course, Halliday and Hoffland choosing not to set a lap here at the start of Q2. Of course, they'll all go back in. They'll all head out again for their second run. And then, of course, we'll get to see more of a representative look at where people are heading to the final runs of Q2 and who we could potentially see being knocked out of this session. As, of course, Jake Benham does return. It's his third race of the season. Did back-to-back races in round 4 and 5. It was a DNF and a 5th. Apart from that, hasn't raced here this season. So it's great to see Jake Benham back with us for a round. And then, of course, it's Kieran Godendorp's third race of the season as well, participating twice before, and I believe scoring points on both occasions. Great to see him up into Q2 and potentially making a bid for Q3 as we see our drivers now head back into the pit lane and then strap on a new set of boots, and they'll go once again, and we'll get to see roughly where people are.
Certainly will. It'll be sort of an indicator as to where they're going to be for the end of the session, as to what their times are going to be in this Q2, as well, everybody will be diving into the pit lane now and making their final preparations ready for this second run. The pressure ramps up. This is why I like a full qualifying session. The pressure ramps up as you go through it. Q1, you feel little to no pressure. Q2, you feel a little bit, and then Q3 is where you really have to lock in and find those extra tenths of a second, and that's why I like the track evolution way on this game as well. It may be a little bit extreme, but I do like sometimes on some of the tracks where they can find so much time in their final runs. I don't like it when the laps are sort of, there's about 2 tenths in it between the start and the end of a session. But when there's so much evolution, when it changes so much, I do very much like that. I think Josh Ido, was that a lap on a set of new tyres? Because a 21.4, that's not too bad.
I don't think so, because we saw Longo do a 0.1. Q2 automatically has better grip because of the evolution on the track. So I'd imagine not. If so, I think he's definitely got to find some pace. So yeah, I believe that was a used set of the tyres there for Josh Ido. As we see yet again the cars heading back out onto track. Halliday and Hoffland, of course, the only two that didn't set a lap at the start of Q2. They're out once again, along with Pookie, Barashne, Longo as well. Of course, Nicholas Longo, a big talking point this season. Of course, went back to back in rounds 1, 2 and 3 to lead the championship by about 30 points. Had a little bit of head loss in Brazil with Julian Klaffenbach, and since then hasn't really done much at all in terms of fight for the championship. He's still 10 points away from that championship lead, but hasn't scored points since round 3. So surprising for Longo, because with the way he drives and the way I've seen him in the past, he's one of those that if he has that big gap, it'll just keep increasing, but it's just kind of decreased, and it's come to a standstill for him here, which is a surprise.
Yeah, and the momentum isn't with him because, of course, he's had those few races where he's decided to not participate for whatever reason, which means that he's allowed the likes of Klaffenbach to catch up and overtake him. So he's no longer the chased, he is now the chasing, and maybe he'll be better when the pressure is just a little bit off him. We will wait and see, of course, as to how he's going to fare in this race. And yeah, Klaffenbach now the championship leader, and it very much looks like Nicholas Longo is on the back foot despite winning every single race he's participated in this year. So that's just a little factoid for you about Nicholas Longo. 7 minutes 24 left in the session. We're going to get Nicholas Longo, in fact, going to be the first driver to start his lap in the second part of Q2. The scrubbed runs are out of the way, and the serious runs look like they are going to begin. And Longo out to the first sector split time. What is he going to be able to do? It's going to be down just a little bit, and that's not the greatest start to his lap, as everybody now is going to be coming through. Halliday and Hoffland haven't got a time on the board yet. Nobody's really got a good time on the board yet. Josh Ido in a decent position, but of course that's not quite as quick as the drivers are going to be capable of on a set of brand new soft compound of tyres. And yeah, we'll see where these lap times are going to stack up. I think it's going to be in the 0.2s again in this session, and then they're going to be going out again and trying to set a 0.1 to find their way up to the very top of the timing sheets. But now Longo around the final couple of corners, he was able to find a 1/10.5 in the second sector, and he's going to try and come through, and he's going to try and come through and find a little bit more time in that third sector. It is where you're going to find as much as you can in that final sector. That's where you're going to find the most gains on the previous lap because of the evolution, just because of the rubber that's down on the track. You're not going to find many gains down the straights because of those reasons. Longo around the final corner keeps it valid, and keeps it. Quickest of all, a 21.118. That's a very strong lap time.
Certainly is, as we do see Istvan Pukki. Next he goes into third with a .390. Then it's about finding out who's next to cross the line. We do have one of the pink Alpines. It'll be Danny Berejnay. Goes into fourth, a 121.183 for him, just over a tenth away from the top time. As Otis Lawrence goes quickest, a 20.908, a brilliant lap time from him. As we see Godendorp up into P6. As we have a few more cars to come through, we have one of the white cars. That'll be Joris Krozen. Goes up into ninth. Shanika Clay, what can he set? He goes up into P7. A brilliant lap from him. As we'll see what Jarno Opmeer can do as he heads his way into the final corner. It's P3 currently for Klaffenbach. It will be P3 now for Jarno Opmeer. A brilliant lap from him as Ismail Fassi now takes third away. A 121.036. Looking at the gaps there on our screens, just over 2.5 tenths separating the top 10, just over 4.5 separating the top 14. Of course, Philippe a second off, but that would not be a representative lap for him. So heading to the end now of Q2, one run to go. We're definitely, I think, here, Joseph, going to see a couple of surprises.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to get those lap times in as quickly as they did. I didn't think we'd be getting the .9s until the final run in the session. But there we go. Otis Lawrence has gone a tenth quicker than Josh Ido, and he surely seals himself through to the next session. Well, he does seal himself through to the next session, I think it's fair to say. And I think we could say that Ido and Fassi are probably through as well, as there's a lot of times that aren't necessarily as close to them as they could be. Berejnay, Clay, Houdendorp, Benham in the high 21.1s. Duncan Hoffman would also fall under that, and they will need to go out again, as will the likes of Krozen, Pukki and Plesneda, because they've not got lap times. That would set them through anyway. Shanika Clay on the bubble at the moment with a 21.184. I'm expecting that lap time to be in the 21.0s by the time that's the end. The Q2 comes to a close. I think it's interesting that they've been able to find that time now, as Lawrence does retire, unsurprisingly. I think it's interesting they've been able to find that time now, so the track is evolving, to be fair, better than I thought it was going to.
Certainly, as we now see everybody head back into the pits as we get prepared for our final runs of the Q2 session. Of course, Ido and Lawrence, both parts of the Alpine team, say we're done with our laps. We don't need to go again. We should be safe heading in towards Q3. Whereas I think everybody else, maybe Ismail Fassi's safe, but I think Jarno Opmeer Dane have to go again, because Jarno is only just over a tenth away from Kian Godendorp here. So it just shows once again how close the lap times are here around Abu Dhabi. As the first car out will be Danny Berejnay along with Shanika Clay. No, it will be Shanika Clay. There we are. Oh, no, not Shanika, it's Philip. Dear me, it doesn't want to decide what it wants to do today, because I've switched to P10 and it put me to P15, but I've just realised Shanika and Philip have a very similar livery.
I think some of them do sort of try and keep it similar. I do think that is it one of the basic ones? Is it one of the default ones? I'm not sure. It looks a bit like the Apex GP one. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be seeing both of them out on the circuit in a minute, as we've already got Philip out and everybody is jumping out now to start their next runs. 2:22 on the clock, an angel number, and some of them will be hoping that it'll bring them the luck that they need in order to set a decent lap. Lawrence, Ido and Fassi have all retired. Everybody else, apart from Klaffenbach now, look like they're going to be setting their times. And is Jarno Opmeer going to make an appearance at the end of this session? Yes, indeed he is. Longe and Krozen are still in the pit lane, and they're going to hope that they're going to be able to come out. Krozen comes out, Longe comes out. We've got everybody, apart from 4 of the top 5, out on the circuit for one final time in this Q2 session. And I think it's going to get very tight between the likes of Berejnay, Clay, Houdendorp, Benham for the final couple of Q3 spots.
Certainly, as all our cars are out on the track. Julian, I think, see, you know what? I'd love to say Julian will go through, because, you know, he's a brilliant driver, and I'm really hoping that he can take the championship so far. But that there was, I think, a bit of a misjudgment from R8G. And I'm only saying that because last night in PSGL, I got it correct with Jarno Opmeer. He DNF'd at P7. I said, that's not going to be safe. That's going to be risky. And it was too risky. So I'm hoping I'll be right again by saying that there for Julian. He's what? Just over a tenth away from Shanika. Everybody else has probably got a tenth in their pockets. Of course, Otis has done a 20.9 already. So Julian, I think, will have to be clutching on there to a top 10 if he wants to make his way into Q3. But we have got our laps underway. The first car will be Philip Presnader. P15 currently hasn't set a representative lap time yet here in Q2, so I'm sure that he'll get a decent lap underway here as he makes his way in towards turn 6 and 7 through that middle sector. And with 40 seconds to go, everybody should make it round and get a lap time on the board in time. But of course, you've got to make sure you don't invalidate, because this track, we've seen it a couple of times already this evening, Joseph. It is a harsh one with track limits, isn't it? Very easy to run that tad bit wide and end your lap.
Certainly, it's very, very, very difficult to keep it on that circuit, and Danny Berejnay has actually already invalidated on his lap, so he won't be going again in this qualifying session. He hasn't got the ERS to find his way through. Once again, it's disappointing for the man, especially because he's in 9th place. So that means that it's a free hit basically for everybody else to gain a free position, and we'll see where everybody is able to stack up as around the final corner is going to come Berejnay, but of course that's not going to be a lap time. That is set. Jake Benham will be the next one to the line as the checkered flag has been waved. He's improved by a chunk, and he's going to hope, I think, to be ahead of Klaffenbach, and I think that might well be the driver right on the bubble at the end of the session. Benham around the final corner, power down. It's going to be right up to 4th place for him, so he has gone through. Duncan Hofland not improving as Goedendok goes up to 5th. Hofland around the final corner. Has he found time in the final sector? He has, well, he has, but it's not enough to improve his way up to any positions. Berejnay, Clay, Presnader and Hofland confirmed out of the session. It's down to Joris Cruzen as Klaffenbach can seal himself safe. Halliday goes up to the front row of the field, and it's now down to Cruzen and Longuet as to who's going to be through. Longuet around the final couple of corners, but Joris is right around the final one, and he's going to make his way up to 5th place. Nicolas Longuet on the bubble. Can he knock out what will be his championship rival? It looks like it may well not quite be enough for Nicolas Longuet. He's out in Q2.
That was very close there for Julian. Survives by the skin of his teeth with a 121.077. It was Otis Lawrence who went quickest, ahead of Jarno Otmir. And Jan Halliday again right up at the top of qualifying. It was P2 in Q1, it's P3 in Q2, followed by Ido, Krozen, Pukki, Fashi, Benham, Godendorp and Klaffenbach. And unfortunately, we do lose Nicolas Longuet, Duncan Hofland, Danny Berejnay, Shanika Clay and Philip Presnader. But once again, very, very close lap times there. And it was not even, 70 thousandths separating 12th down to 15th. Another 10th up towards P8. Very close at the end of Q2. And of course, I'd say there our biggest surprises are probably Longuet and Berejnay, two drivers normally we expect to see straight into that third qualifying session.
Yeah, Berejnay and Clay neither of them improved on the final run, and that's what really cost them. They both, I believe it was Berejnay, of course, invalidated. I just think Shanika Clay didn't find enough time in his lap to make his way through. Duncan Hofland wasn't up by much on his lap as well. So we have some shocks in that Q2 session, and we have a few surprises through to this Q3. Jan Halliday, of course, expected at this point that he'll make it through to Q3. Hopefully he can find those extra tenths that he had sort of lacking over the last few weeks. Joris Cruzen able to sneak his way through at the last moment, and he's got a great opportunity. Julian Klaffenbach has the chance to try and extend on his championship leader. And just looking at it, I don't think I've ever seen so many J names through to a Q3 session, because over half of them are J names. You've got Joris, you've got Julian, you've got Jan, you've got Jake, Jarno, and Josh Ido, and you've got a couple of I's in there as well. All of them are actually in the same, if you look at the alphabet, the same 3-letter stretch. J-I-K, and then you've got Otis Lawrence as well, who's the one outlier.
Oh, dear me. I mean, I didn't notice it, but now I have. Lots of J's in this session. A couple of I's, an O and a K. Didn't think that would be something that we'd end up talking about, but yes, there we go. Lots of J's in this session, but we do have Ismail Fassi on track, and I presume we'll just be going out there, getting rid of all the bollards, and then we'll go back in and then make everybody else have a very easy time out for their first runs in Q3. Somebody's got to be the bulldozer and remove all the bollards. As we know around this track, they do cause a lot of chaos. So they're all being removed, sliding off into the barriers, One there. I think there's one in towards turn 1, so I'm not sure if he's going to go again just to get rid of those ones. We'll have a look. And he will. He's even going out. Oh, no, he's not. He's going back into the pits. I think he was double thinking there. Do I go out? Do I stay? No. Do I stay in? No. Stay out or go in? There we go. And he chose to go in. That is a right tongue twister, isn't it? Stay out and go in.
Certainly is, which is why he won't catch me saying it. But no, I think he just wanted the bollard around the final corner as well, just for the extra XP points. It doesn't affect you because it's not close enough to any of the tracks. You're not going to be that far to the inside, and if you are, you're off the circuit and you're too far over from the pits. But you know, just the extra XP for Ismail Fassi. Under 10 minutes left in this Q3 session. No lap times on the board just yet. Get your predictions in the chat as to who you think is going to be on pole position. Looks like we're having a lot of support today from Jarno and from Jan's camps. But I'm going to go somebody different. I like to be a devil's advocate. I think that Joris is going to be able to find a lot of time in this final session. Ismail Fassi as well. He's generally a good qualifier. Otis generally goes under the radar. No real predictions for him, and he tends to find his way up the top. I think it's more of a case of when, not if. He goes up to the very top. So I'm going to actually back Otis in this one. After saying 2 different names, I'm actually going to go for a third different one.
You're taking your choice there. There's 10 to choose from. You looked through 3 and you went with Otis in the end. It's not a bad prediction. He's very quick in qualifying. And normally a driver that we expect to see fighting for pole, but then the same can go for at least another 4 or 5 in this qualifying session. As we have cars out on track for their first runs in Q3. The first car being Jan Halliday in the Aston Martin. Of course, saw a few people earlier betting him for pole with me. Aston. 2 betted for pole. A couple said the top 5, and somebody else said P7. So a nice range of qualifying predictions there for Jan Halliday as he makes his way through turns 7 and 8. And just passing him will be Kian Godendorf, a driver who also has been under the radar this evening, has made 2 appearances before, both in the top 10, and we'll be looking to do that for a 3rd time here this evening. Of course, if you're thinking, who is Kian Godendorf, because you haven't seen him much before, he is part of the Red Bull team, I believe, as a development driver, and I'm sure we'll be looking and hoping that he can line himself up on the main roster next season. Had a very, very successful F124, and so far in F125, he's looking very strong as well. Indeed, as he makes his way through to the end of Sector 3 and gets his first lap underway. But then, of course, behind him, we do have Otis Lawrence. So let's, Joseph, let's have a look at Otis's opening lap, and let's hope we don't curse him by you saying that he's going to go for pole.
Certainly not. I mean, that's my track record, basically, is cursing those drivers. But, of course, Otis Lawrence, he won't need cursing. He'll be all right on this qualifying lap, and he is going to head through it. Of course, the bollards have been taken out, but there's still a few little bits of debris on the circuit, but Otis heads through the first corner with no real problems. Then the first couple of corners are just sort of, you can go flat, you just need to make sure that you ride the curbs as much as possible, and that's exactly what Otis is doing. Then you want to brake and turn in on the curb into turn number 5, which is a very, very dangerous thing to do, but he's managed to survive it, and that's actually what we watched when we watched on board last time with a driver's lap. He was too far over on the curbing into turns 6 and 7. Otis Lawrence, can he survive it? There's a little bit of a slide, so maybe it's actually the optimal line to take, that you have a little bit of a slide onto the entry of the corner, because of course it's a chicane, so all that matters is the entry and the exit to the corner. It doesn't matter how you traverse it. Then you head down to turn number 9. It's a mid-speed corner. You want to keep it into about 4th or 5th gear, then up it to whichever gear it is next, out on the exit of the corner. Then ignore that one, ignore turn number 10, because it's turn 11 and 12 where you want to start thinking about your braking zone for the final sector, and just about keeping it valid is Otis Lawrence. I think there's a couple of scruffy moments in the lap, but it looks pretty quick, and around the final corner he's going to come. Turn at number 16, it's going to be a lap of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix Hyundai with a 21.7, and Otis Lawrence with a 20.8. And I don't know what I'm talking about with scruffy, because that is a strong lap time to start off Q3.
It certainly is. A barnstorming lap there from Otis Lawrence at 120.845. Next to cross the line will be Istvan Pukki. Of course, we're going to have a mix of new tyres and old tyres for drivers here on the first runs in Q3. We'll see what Istvan can do up to the line. It's a 120.924. Then we have Josh Edo, I think in the Alpine, but in a very black tape car, goes P3 121.017. Then our championship leader, Julian Klaffenbach, heading up to the line. It will be a 21.515. That would have been a used set for him as Jake Benham goes up into P2. Jumping onto that provisional front row. Then we have the Flying Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer. He goes second quickest, just behind the back of Otis Lawrence. Then Joris Kroesen goes up into P6. Ismail Fassi, the last of the lot. He goes 7th fastest. I'd say there, probably P7 down to P10 on a used set. Everybody else on a new set of tyres. But a brilliant lap there from Jarno Opmeer. And that's because he's not normally a driver. We see on the front row or on pole, he's normally one of those that drops down to P5, P6 in quali, but then in the race, barges forward. So that is really, really promising for Opmeer. Then seen Julian down in P9, of course on a used set. He's got that extra pressure to try and match or go quicker than a .867, which is a brilliant lap.
Certainly is. It's a very good start to this session from Jarno Opmeer. I think, though, he might have to back it up in the final part of this if he wants to find his way onto the front row of the grid permanently. Of course, he sits there right now, but I'm not sure for how much longer he will be up there, because there will be time in every single one of these laps, especially the bottom four who set a time on used soft compound tyres. There is time in this lap for all of those drivers. There's surely time in the lap for the likes of Benham, Pookie, Ido and Kroesen, but we will see, as now they are going to run around, and I think they're going to be trying to make it a pretty quick turnaround to start off the final qualifying lap on this one. Otis Lawrence in a strong position as it stands, but only 200ths ahead of Jarno Opmeer, who set a very good lap time. Fassi, Halliday, Klaffenbach and Hoedendorp. It's unknown what they could do in Q3, but we'll find out in just a couple of minutes' time.
We certainly will do, as the final car to go into the pits will be Ismail Fassi, and then we'll get ready for the final runs in this qualifying session. Of course, guys, don't go anywhere. We have got the race to come after this. We'll have our final runs in Q3, then we'll have a brief restart, so that will just cost us around 5 or 10 minutes. Then we'll go back in for our 29 lap race, I believe it is, around this circuit. And then, of course, we'll see who we can crown winner of round 10 of the championship. And of course, with the gap being 6 points between Klaffenbach and Opmeer, Jarno would love to have a 7 position gap to Julian, but Julian needs to kind of be ahead of Jarno if he wants to try and hold that championship lead. Of course, Jarno has won here 3 times in the past championship-wise, season 13, 15 and 16. Would love to try and go for it here in season 21, whereas Julian Klaffenbach, I don't think before this season had even taken part in Tier 1. I think he might have been a reserve in season 20, but I don't think, sorry, season 18, but I don't think he took part properly as a driver. So if he wins it, he's technically won it on debut, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, you certainly could. You certainly could indeed. The final couple of laps will start very soon, and it will be Kian Hoedendorp to lead us out. Jan Halliday will be following through, and yeah, everyone filtering out of the pit lane now, so waited a little bit longer than I thought they would, so I think it might be tight to the line for a few of them. We won't be able to see because we've got that wonderful caution in the top left corner of your screens. There we go, just over 2 minutes left in, and just under as the final few drivers will be out of the pit lane. I believe it might be Klaffenbach who's going to be the latest of them all, but it doesn't matter for those at the front. They won't pick up the slipstream, but they will get the opportunity to set a very, very good time towards the end of this session. But might they have jumped the gun? They won't get any slipstream from anybody. They won't get any dirty air, so it's kind of a debate. So I think down in Sector 2, they're going to lose a bit of time. In Sector 3, they're going to find oodles of time, and especially Fassi, Halliday, Klaffenbach and Hoedendorp, they'll be expecting to find, at the very least, 3 odd tenths of a second, if not more. And if Hoedendorp finds any less than 7 tenths, I reckon, he will be very disappointed in his lap. He will be the first one to get us underway, so no slipstream handed to the Dutchman, but what he does have is a clean track ahead of him.
He certainly does, as Kian, with a very big gap to the car second in the train, will head his way into the final corner out of turn 16 and down towards turn 1. The final laps are underway. Kian will go first. P10 currently on an old set of the soft tyres, so has to find nearly a second on Otis Lawrence, but of course we know he's nowhere near a second off when it comes to a representative lap time, as we head down towards turn 5. Is up by a tenth and a half already in sector 1. 1-3-1 up for Godendorp. A bit of a lock up into turn 5, but I think everybody has a lock up into turn 5. It might just be the graphics and the visuals of the game as we now head our way down towards turn number 6 for Keen Godendorp. Harsh on the brakes, get the car turned in nicely, carry the speed through 6 and 7, and then through turn 8 and down towards turn 9 you go. Of course, DRS will open along this back straight, and then of course you prepare yourself for a very tricky long left-hander. What's he up by? 3/10 in sector 2. That would put him ahead of Klaffenbach, but not quite ahead of Halliday. But it's sector 3 where you tend to gain the most time on your lap. We'll see what Keane can do as he heads in towards turn 12, then in towards turn 13 at the left-hander, followed by the second left-hander of turn 14, a very low grip section of the circuit. You've got to be tense with the car through there. Into turn 16 we go, the final corner for Keane Godendorp. What can he set on the board as he heads up to the line? He goes on to pole position, a 1:20.828 from Keane Godendorp. What a lap from the young Dutchman, as next across the line will be Istvan Pukki. So he now heads into turn 16, currently sits P5, a tenth away from pole. Can he take that pole away? To the line, goes 4th. Next we have Jan Halliday. What can he do? The young Czech driver goes up to 3rd. He goes onto the second row of the grid. Otis Lawrence takes it back by 2/10 of a second. Jarno Opmeer is invalidated. 3rd goes Jake Benham. I want to keep an eye here on Julian Klaffenbach, see what he can set. Of course, Jarno, he's now going to drop down the field due to his invalidation, but Keane Godendorp is now on the front row of the grid. Fassi goes 3rd, 2 thousandths away from Godendorp. Klaffenbach only goes 9th, and Josh Eder, what can he do? Up to the line, he stays in P10. It's Lawrence on pole, it's Godendorp in 2nd.
Certainly is. What a lap that is from Otis Lawrence. To seal pole position by over 2/10 of a second is simply cinema, is the only way you can describe that. But Otis Lawrence, pole position in a comprehensive style. Godendorp will join him on the front row by only 0.02 of a second to the driver in 3rd place. That is such a tight qualifying session. That is why we do full qualifying. It builds up to that moment, the last few seconds of qualifying, and it's Lawrence to Godendorp to Fassi to Benham, Halliday and Opmeer. Pukki, Cruzen, Klaffenbach and Edo round out the field, but to see 2nd and 7th split by 0.063 of a second. I love full qualifying, I love Abu Dhabi, and I love World Online Racing Tier 1.
I mean, the gap there between Otis and Keane was the same gap between Keane and Josh. I mean, that is something in its own. P1 and P2 separated by the same gap as P2 down to P10, which just shows the level that Otis is above others in qualifying. He's absolutely sensational when it comes to those final lap pressure high moments, and, well, he will be on pole position for the race. But of course we have to have our restart. We have to go back to the normal F125 cars, and we're just while we get prepared, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors over at Grid Finder and Next Level Racing. And welcome back, everyone. Of course, we're having our restarts, and I thought, just while we have some time, we'll have a look at the standings, because quite a few people have been asking in the chats who's leading the championship, who is where, and also where is Uppbeat. Well, Uppbeat sits P2, 6 points back from Julian Klaffenbach, who is currently at the top of the standings. Then Nicholas Longay still retains third after not scoring points since round number 3. A brilliant first 3 rounds, and then after that it's been quite poor for him. Then we have Ismail Fassi on 67 points. I'm sure we'll see some comments in the chat, with Otis Lawrence running off the top 5 on 55. Then we have Joris Krozen, Shanika Clay, Josh Ido, Tamas Gal, and then Ruben Pedreño running off the top 10. And then we'll have a quick look at the calendar. There we go, I'll get my words out. It will be, of course, Great Britain next time for round 11, before we head to Belgium for round 12 at the penultimate round of the season. And then Bahrain, I presume Bahrain will get changed because of the track bump at turn 4. If not, we'll still have Bahrain, or we'll have a different track. We'll have to wait and see on that one, but of course that will conclude the season on November 27th. So there we go, Joseph. Welcome back with us. Of course, I was just looking at the final 3 races after this one. Britain, Belgium and Bahrain. 3 brilliant tracks to end off the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a very good end to the season. Britain, a very open circuit, and Belgium very similar, both offering huge overtaking opportunities. Bahrain, I mean, we've given them a month and a half to fix the bump. So hopefully we'll get the chance to race there, but unfortunately I'm not 100% sure whether we will get the chance to. But yeah, Britain and Belgium will be very, very good. And whatever the final race is, I still think that will be a very, very, very good race. Of course, with the title on the line, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes right down to the finale. We're going to have a very, very good season on our hands.
Certainly, as we're now working our way back into the lobby, everybody slowly working their way back in. Of course, as always, a big thank you to Bench Shabakonyi, who is our lobby host for this evening. And whenever he turns up, he is always the host. So a big thank you to Bench as well for sorting everything out and having the pressure of making a mistake and then somebody having a go at him, as I've came to on many occasions in the past when I do something wrong. One of them was when I got the grid wrong. Believe me, did I have a lot of drivers angry. I mean, we did restart it, but still, I've got quite a few angry drivers at me as well in the Discord chat. But of course, guys, let us know your predictions in the live chat as well. Of course, it will be Otis Lawrence on pole, Kian Gordendorp in second, and Ismail Fassi in third. Give us your predictions of how you see the race going along. Of course, Jarno Uppmeyer at P6 in qualifying, P9 for Julian Klaffenbach, so they are 3 positions apart. There's 6 points between them. This is definitely, I think this could be the race here, which definitely, I mean, I think if Julian beats Jarno in this race, that's then going to be quite positive for Julian. With 3 races to go, leading the championship, he's just got to stay consistent. Whereas if Jarno Uppmeyer takes the lead after this race, I can see him then wrapping it up. I feel like he's one of those that once he gets into the lead, Julian will start to crumble a bit, and then Jarno can run away and take it. It's one of those where this is probably one of the most deciding races we've had so far this season.
Yeah, experience tends to prevail, and that's what Jarno Uppmeyer is going to be hoping for. Julian didn't quite have the bottle in the final part of that qualifying session, which is why he finds himself right down the order. He finds himself right down the order. I say that, he's P9, so he's not too far off, but 9th place isn't necessarily the greatest starting position to try and topple your championship rival, who, of course, at the end of that session, found himself further up the field. And your other title rival, I'd say there's probably 4 in it. I'd say it's probably Ismail, who, of course, qualified 3rd place, Jarno, who qualified 6th, Julian, who qualified 9th, and, of course, you have the likes of Otis, who can find their way in there. Nicholas Longay, who won those 3 races, he's down outside of the top 10. So they're very much split up in terms of the championship contenders, and I think they'll be fighting their way through the field to try and sort of sort themselves out just a little bit more. As you can see, there you go. The top 5 are, of course, the 5 that I just mentioned just now, and I think the gap to Cruzen won't be toppled. And I think Otis has got a little bit more work to do if he wants to catch up that 30-point gap to Klaffenbach, but he's certainly got the pace.
Certainly has, and I've just put the standings back on there once again for you all to have a little look at. And I think it's quite mad because normally you'd look at the top 4 and think, oh, they're all championship contenders. Ismail Fassi, I kind of forgot to mention his name. I think he's definitely still got a shout of fighting for the championship. I'd love to say Nicholas Longo, but I feel like he's kind of just put his foot off the gas a little bit since that third round, and where he took his third win of the season in 3 races, and since then has done nothing, but he still retains third. I'd love to say he can fight for it, but I just feel like he hasn't got the desire in him currently to go for it. And then, of course, we have Jarno Opmeer and Julian Klaffenbach, our main protagonists up the top of the championship in Austrian versus the Dutchman. But then, of course, Otis Lawrence as well. I think he could also be a surprise in the championship, depending on if he can attend all 4 races, because he has only attended a few this season, and he's up into 5th. If he can attend the final 4 and go for wins in every one, he could certainly pounce up and launch an attack himself. I think it's between the top 5, but realistically, the top 2. I think they're the ones mainly who are fighting for it. But then again, one race with Julian and Jarno in the wall could bring Nico and Isma back into it.
Certainly could. And I mean, it's very much, as you say, it's very much looking like those top 2 are going to be the championship contenders. You have the likes of Longo Fassi and Otis, who are trying to fight their way. And I think Otis very much has the pace to do it, but I don't know whether he has the desire, because I think he feels as though those 2 have slipped away to start off the season. And I think that's why Nicholas Longo is kind of, I think he's kind of missed out on an opportunity to really seal the season, because he was so far in the lead. He won those 3 races, then he disappeared. He's come back now, and he is on the back foot. He's not quite got such a lead. He's got nowhere near the humongous lead he had before, and he's 10 off Klaffenbach. So I think it's gonna be all about trying to build that momentum back up.
Yeah, certainly. But then again, if he can charge his way through the field and jump up into the top 3, he can then launch himself back onto the top of the standings. It was all that close. It's just gut feeling. I don't think Longo quite has it in him currently this season. And of course, we're now counting down, heading into the lobby. 18 seconds will be in the lobby. And then, of course, the drivers have to chuck on their setups, their strategies, chat with their engineers, figure out what they want to do, ready for that 29-lap race around the Yas Marina circuit. Of course, a fact I didn't know until George Morgan mentioned it last night was that this is actually built on an island. Didn't know it was an island until yesterday, which I probably should know, shouldn't I, Joseph?
Certainly should. I certainly knew that. But listen, my geography just transcends everything. I managed to guess the capital of Syria yesterday.
Oh,
literally,
what
someone said, "What's the capital of Syria?" And I just said it like that. It's Damascus. So the more you know.
You did. I thought Damascus was a city in Egypt. No, I'm thinking of Cairo, aren't I? I don't know.
That's the capital of Egypt. But I mean, I'm trying to remember the city you're thinking of now.
I don't know. It's one of them. There's one of many anyway.
I've got no idea. Google doesn't know either. So.
And I'm trying to see, because normally in other leagues we have the whole thing of waiting for a certain point before we can ready up, but I didn't see that message in the chat, so I don't think we're going to have any sort of wait time. I think it's just about when the drivers get ready to go and get started for this race. Of course, it's Lawrence on pole from Keen Godenorp in 2nd place, Ismail Fassi 3rd, and then we've got Jarno Opmeer and Julian Klaffenbach all in the top 10. Of course, those 2, the main protagonists for our championship fight. And now, Joseph, it's the point of sitting here and figuring what to talk about before we get started, because we normally sit on this screen for a long, long time, and don't know why, but ever since F122, they decided to remove the countdown at the top of our screens, which has ruined our preparation here, hasn't it?
Certainly has. I mean, it gives us the opportunity to talk about strategy and talk about, I don't know, the NPCs looking on in the background, looking very excited about cars that aren't moving. And they've got a lot of energy for before lap 1 of the race. I'll give that to them.
Certainly. And here we go as we get ready now for round 10 of the championship around Abu Dhabi. It's 5 red lights here for round 10. It's Lawrence on pole. It's Godenorp in 2nd, and it's lights out. Down to turn 1 we go. A brilliant start from our pole sitter, and no doubt that Otis leads into turn 1 as we have Jake Benham and Jan Hurley fighting side by side up towards turns 3 and 4, as Jake Benham does get ahead of Ismail Fassi. A brilliant move up the inside for the McLaren. Ismail Fassi still on the outside as they head down towards turn 5. Who's going to make the overtakes as Jan Halliday now sends the move on his teammate. A brilliant move there from Halliday. Goes up into 4th place. Ahead of Ismail Fassi is already. Nicholas Longate takes a 10-second time penalty.
Huge moment. Nicholas Longate, terrible start to his race, and he'll be hoping to rebuild it, and I don't think he'll be able to offset that deficit that he's got already, and now he's dropping even further down the field. Ido, Thomason, Berejne, Hardy, just 4 drivers that made their way through on Longate since the start of this race as Hoendorp takes the lead. He goes through on Otis Lawrence. Jan Halliday trying to search for a gap on Jake Benham. He can't quite spot it. Is it around the outside? Not quite yet. And there's still a waiting game up the top of the field as Cruzen and Pookie are side by side. They've been side by side for a number of corners. Jan Ortmir sends it down the inside of Ismail Fassi just in front of them. He tries to hold it in. He tries to keep a tyre on the circuit. He's able to do so. Fassi still able to hold on to the position. The strong defence from the Ferrari. And as we end lap 1, it's Hoendorp ahead of Lawrence.
Certainly, and we've also been told that there was a bit of desync as well with a couple of drivers further down the field. I think that's where we saw Nicholas Longate get tangled up, so I'm just keeping an eye to see if there'll be any sort of look for a restart here, but apparently Josh Ido is lagging heavily at the moment, which is definitely not ideal for anybody in and around him as we head down towards turn number 5 again, as we do see Josh looking to make a move now on the back of Tycho Hardy, but can't quite get ahead. Sits back for now. Further back it's 3 wide. Shanika Glate, Renz Thomason and Nicholas Longate battling for 14th. Off the road goes Shanika. Into 15th goes Renz Thomason. Thomas Ronhar's looking to make a move as well and potentially get past the 3 of them. It's 4 wide down towards turn number 6. Who's going to come ahead in this battle? As up the inside goes Ronhart. He was 17th. He's now up into 14th as Nicholas Longate pushes him wide through turn 7. That could have nearly been a wheel off there for Thomas Ronhart. As we make our way back down towards turn 9, Yoni Torman looking to get a sniff into this battle. So is Thomason and Prejnader as they make their way in towards turn 9. Who will take 14th? Thomas Ronhart was 18th out of turn 5. He's 14th down towards turn 12.
Certainly is, but I don't think this is over. Is Longate going to make a late send? Not quite yet, but he's looking very, very racy early on in this one as he tries to recover the positions that he lost. And end of lap number 3, and Hoendorp continues to lead. Jake Benham has dropped a decent chunk of time, and Otis Lawrence is remaining right ahead of him. There's about 7/10 of a gap between them at the moment as they filter through, and the DRS is going to be very important. If they do drop it, then that's very much going to be a huge moment, because that straight that they're about to come onto is so very crucial, and then you've got the one right behind it to back it up. That is what's going to be able to drag you across. If you aren't able to remain in the DRS, that is going to really ruin you, which is why we're going to see, I think, a number of drivers matching strategies. At the moment, a number of them are on the medium compound of tyre. Only Lawrence, Fassi and Klappenbach in the top 13 are on them. But now, as we see potential swaps, that could all change. But it looks like they remain the same out of the first DRS zone. Are they going to change in the second?
Certainly, as we head our way out of turn 7 and 8 and back down towards turn 9. Otis Lawrence closing in on the back of Godendorp, but of course not going to make much of a charge just yet. He is on a set of the hard tyres, and that could be because of what we saw last night over in the other league, where we saw the hard to medium really work out well for Ronhart. And Otis Lawrence, Ismail Fassi, Klappenbach in the top 10 going for the hard to medium, whereas 14th and downwards all on the hards as well. Everybody else on a set of the medium tyres for the opening stint of this race. I presume everybody's on a 1-stop, but we have seen a 2-stop here in the past, so we'll have to wait and see and look if anybody goes for that strategy as we head out of turn 16. And Tycho Hardy closing in on the back of Josh Ido, and so is Thomas Ronhart on the back of Tycho Hardy. And if I remember correctly, these two made contact back in Mexico a few rounds ago. It was Tycho Hardy into the back of Ronhart, which pretty much took him out of contention for the race, and let's hope the same doesn't happen again here today. As I can see on my screen as well, lots of lag there for Josh Ido down towards turn 5, and I'm sure Tycho Hardy is probably a bit wary and looking for the move, isn't he?
Yeah, at the moment, very much looking for that move is Tycho Hardy. Is he going to be able to take it? It's not going to be close enough for him, as in the background it looks like it's going to get very racy. Plejneda and Zabo Konyi for 18th spot is getting very dicey. Otis Lawrence closing on the back of Houdendorp, but hasn't quite yet got the run. But Lawrence doing incredibly well on those hard compound tyres. This will benefit him come the end of the race. He and Fassi, if they're able to stay on the hards, and if they remain sort of within vague DRS range on each other, they could drag each other through to a 1-2.
Yeah, they certainly could do. It's all about getting that strategy right and pitting on the right lap as we make our way through and towards turn 16 again. It's Keane Godenook that leads from second place as we head back down towards turn 1 on the medium tyre. Lawrence second, Jake Benham with a brilliant start up to third, and the same can go for Jan Halliday, who was in third at one point but now sits in P4 with his teammate Ismail Fassi close behind in P5. And then of course for the championship we have Jarno Opmeer P6, Julian P9, then we have Nicholas Longate in 15th with a penalty which I presume will get removed due to lag, and then of course Ismail Fassi sitting in P5. So things could certainly start to close up even more between Opmeer and Klaffenbach, because it would be 2 points scored for Klaffenbach if it stays like this, and for Opmeer it would be 8, and that would mean they would end up on the exact same amount of points as Ronhart, up into 13.
Yeah, it would be. It's going to be very interesting the way that the championship stacks up, especially with not many races to go. Lawrence is going to get through on Houdendorp with the second burst of DRS on the lap, and these two are trying to drag each other away from the rest of the field. They've now eked out the gap to Jake Benham to just about 2/10 more. It's now 7/10 back between Houdendorp and Benham, and they're going to hope to do the same thing. Fassi's dropping off the back of Jan Halliday, and he needs to make his way back in slipstream range soon if he does want to work together with Otis Lawrence at some point in this race, and it feels like he's sort of going to have to if he wants to keep his race alive. On to lap number 6 then of this Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and well, it's very much looking like this is going to be a race that could be decided within the next few laps, as Lawrence with the fastest, where the mediums are going to start to go off around lap number 6 or 7, maybe lap number 8 is where they're going to start to feel the effects. One of those few laps is where it's might be the switching moment, might be the crossover point, and that's where the hards come into their own. So Houdendorp needs to make sure that he's ahead of Lawrence, and hopefully with Benham on the back of the Welshman in order to have any real opportunity of out-strategizing the Alpine.
Certainly, as I'm just keeping an eye here on Joris Krozen, who's had a very quiet start to the race, has been in the top 10 all race long, but hasn't really made any moves or really came under pressure as we head down towards turn 5 and 6. There's another move on the cards here for Ronhart. He goes up into 12th place ahead of Josh Edo. A brilliant move ahead of the laggy Alpine. And now next on his list will be the McLaren of Danny Berejnay as we head down towards turn 9, and I'd say probably lap 7 onwards is where we'll see the hards become a lot stronger than the mediums, and that's when Thomas will start to carve his way through the field. And then I'd say lap 9 onwards we'll see those on the mediums start to make their pit stops. Of course, we've seen in the past undercuts work heavily, so that's something that the drivers have to keep in their heads. Once one pits, they all start to follow through as well. As we head through the final sector once again to begin lap 7 of 29. It's still Lawrence that leads ahead of Godendorp in second, Benham in third, who is again having a brilliant race for the McLaren team. And then looking further down as well, Duncan Hoffland rounding off the top 10 in the Aston Martin. Also been a decent start by him as well as we head our way through the first opening corners. And then of course Godendorp with his third race of the season, he's had 2 top 10 finishes before. He could make it a second place potentially, or even a podium. Surely that puts him in a very good position, potentially heading into the F1 Sim Racing Championship in a few months' time.
Yeah, it very much could be, and it's good preparation now just to get themselves underway. It's likely that they'll be racing around Abu Dhabi. Of course, we don't know what the calendar is, but the majority of calendars do seem to feature Abu Dhabi as a finale. This is a few rounds earlier than a finale, so it's just a slightly different time to be racing around here, and so it's created a different dynamic. Whilst it is usually a finale, when they usually think about the championship, now they're thinking a little bit more about the racing action and still trying to keep the championship alive. Fassi desperately looking for a move past Jan Halliday, but hasn't quite found it yet.
Certainly, as we make our way through 13 and 14, then in towards 15 again. And I'm sure we'll start to see a few cars thinking about pit stops next time around. They'll all stay out this time, but I think at the end of lap 7 heading on to lap 8, we could see a car or two look to start off the pit stop phase for those on the mediums, and Nicholas Longay has already left the 1 second gap of Tycho Hardy, and that is not good for him in his efforts of at least trying to get up into the top 10.
No, certainly isn't at this point in time. Those hard runners at the back will be desperately pushing on Nicholas Longay as much as they can to remain within the DRS. That is so very crucial. I think Longay's pushed enough to make his way back in, so that small mistake out of the first corner is not going to cost him too much, as the two Ferraris look like they might come to blows. Of course, they are not, they're teammates, but they're not really teammates, so it's going to be interesting to watch them fight as they go through. Of course, Fassi is regularly a Ferrari driver. Jan Halliday is not affiliated with an F1 esports team as such, but if he was, it would be Aston Martin, so they are very much not teammates. They're very much they're very much just going to fight it out as if they weren't in the same Scarlet Red Ferrari car. But what it could have the negative of doing is when they come into the pit lane, it could make them it can make them double stack. So they do need to work together on a sense of trying to match the strategies so they don't fight each other. Fassi on the hards though, I don't think that's going to be a problem when he's going to be fighting Halliday today. So it's just all about the on-track action.
Certainly, as I'd just like to say in the chat, please stop spamming, guys, as means we have to go in there and ban you. So please don't spam in the chat. It means that we can have a lot better read of the live chats as we head back in towards turn 1. And nobody goes into the pits this lap as we head on to lap 9 of 29. Joni Tormöller takes the fastest lap on the hard tyres, and that pretty much proves that the hards now are the quicker tyre, as we've also seen Josh Ido dropping outside of the DRS gap to Thomas Reinhardt as they head down towards turn 5. That gap currently just over a second means no DRS for the Alpine this time around unless he managed to get it on the brakes. I don't think he did, no. That is a big, big shame for Josh Ido. As further back we see some moves as there's a lot of lag on my screen currently. I'm not sure if that's my game or if that's the game in general. I'm hoping nobody else is lagging because that was rather confusing down the back straight, I've got to say.
I mean, I've been having huge lag spikes throughout the race, so some of it's been a little bit of guesswork, but I've not had it in the last couple of laps, so I'm hoping that I've just passed it over to you is the case. But no, I'm hoping that it's going to be all fine, because there was potentially aspersions of some drivers not having good enough internet to be competing in this race. A little bit of desync, as you mentioned at the start of the race. The evidence was deemed as not enough to cause a restart, but it's still going to be a little bit nagging on the drivers, and I believe that was the reason that Nicholas Longay picked up a 10-second time penalty as he was trying to get through on Josh Ido, who's picked up a penalty by himself. He's got 3 seconds, and now he dives into pit lane, so it looks like the pit window is going to open on lap number 10 as Cruzen and Ido are the first into the lane, and Ido has actually retired. He thinks that that 3 second is going to be too much, or that he's struggling with his internet, so that's going to be the Alpine, the first out of the race.
Certainly a big, big shame there for Josh Ido. Not been a race to remember for him, considering he's taken a win and a P4 in the past this season. This will certainly be a race to forget, as Joris Cruzen will now start off the pit stops. He'll be the net leader of the race because he's the only one that has pitted. And then, of course, he needs a really good outlap here. Put the pace down early on this opening lap. And then, of course, try and bring that gap down to others around him that are pitting off of the medium tyre. As Benjamin Conyi gets past Nicholas Longay, who just really had a poor race. I think at the start, once he got hit there by Josh Ido, I believe, and got given the 10-second penalty, he's just not really bothered to push at all, which is a big, big shame for Nico, and it just shows he's not really got the desire at these moments in the race to keep pushing on, unless he's potentially got damage on that front left side. No, he hasn't. I thought he did for a moment on one angle, but no damage for Nicholas. Just not the best race for him, as Kean has lost that 1 second. Now, does that mean that he'll pit? It certainly does. In the pit lane goes Kean Godendorp. Anybody else choosing to go in? I don't think they are. No, Istvan Pukki will. Hofland and Berezhny stay out. So Godendorp from second goes in early.
Yeah, it's an undercut. It's not quite as big of an undercut as Joris Cruzen, though, who is going to be coming around the final few corners, and we'll see where they come out. Of course, the very unique pit lane where they go under the circuit and actually exit out on the corner of turn number 2. We'll see where they stack up. Cruzen now heading into the first corner, and Hoendorp and Istvan Pukki heading under it. Who's going to be leading out of these few? think it's going to be Kian Holdendorf. Indeed it is, but he's going to be on a colder set of tyres, so it may well not be so easy. Ismail Fassi demonstrating the advantage of having DRS by making his way through on Jake Benham with no real problems, and he's going to hope to display a double advantage, this time with the hard compound tyres as opposed to the mediums, as they head down the next straight, and Benham with the DRS isn't able to get close enough.
Certainly, and of course this has worked out heavily for Joris Kroes. Remember, he was P8, Keane was in P2, and now Joris with that one lap undercut has got himself within a second of Kian Godendorf. A brilliant undercut there by the Haas, as we do see Ben Shabakonyi make the move ahead of Tycho Hardy. He moves up into 12th place, and also for Tycho Hardy, not being his best race in the Haas car, I presume he'll be in as well shortly off of those medium tyres and going on to a set of the hards, as we keep an eye on Jake Benham. He stays out, as we do see Jan Halliday and Jarno Opmeer go to the pit lane. Duncan Hofland and goes in, and Danny Berechne stays out. So only 3 medium runners left on the mediums. It's Jake Benham, Danny Berechne and Tycho Hardy. Everybody else will go into the pits and go onto a brand new set of the hards. Now my eye is on Jan Halliday and Kian Godendorf.
I think Jan was planning to go one lap longer, but he dropped out of the DRS, and that was going to be it. They come under the turn at number 1 now, and they will come through the pit lane out onto the exit. Where are they going to be? It is going to be right down the very bottom of the field. Jan Halliday is going to be 1.3 seconds off of this. Van Pukita does not have that DRS and needs to push now. Joni Tormala in a world of his own at the moment. I think he'll be hoping that Danny's tyres go off that little bit more, as Danny is now on the back of the Kick Sauber of Thomas Ronhaar, who is of course on those hards, so has that advantage at the moment, and Danny is trying to use him to drag himself through and hold on to those mediums as long as he possibly can. I think that 12 is about right in terms of the last lap, in terms of the pit window closing, but we'll see whether they are going to be coming in. Jake Benham still has the DRS on Ismail Fassi, and Fassi is closing the gap to Otis Lawrence, so he doesn't necessarily need to come in, but I think he's going to drop DRS, and I think he's going to react to that too and dive in. Indeed he is. Jake Benham 1.1 off the back of Ismail Fassi, and he makes the decision to dive in. Berechne continues, so he's going to be going on to a 12th lap on those medium compound of tyres. Tycho Hardy continues as well, so they're stretching that stint very, very long.
They certainly are, just looking for something different on their strategy. If they're not going to pit at the start of those on the mediums pit, and they might as well go very long and have a big offset to those who are on the same strategy. As we do see Jake Benham come out down in P18, might even be P19, it will be. Comes out bottom of the pile behind Duncan Hofland. Never mind, he keeps ahead, just about ahead of the Aston Martin as we head down towards turn 5, and of course Jake was 1 place behind Kian, going 3 laps later in the pit stops, as they placed him 5 positions behind Kian, as Jarno Opmeer having a battle with Jan Halliday as Shabakonyi passes Presneda. But of course Jarno is on the attack here of Halliday as Godendorf goes past Longuet, who probably is going to get in the way now of our cars who are on the new tyres. Remember, Nicholas hasn't pitted yet in this race, and I'm not sure if he's going to be helping anybody, but if he does, we'll start to see shortly as he lets through Joris Kroes, and next on the list will be Istvan Pukki.
If he's going to hold up anyone, it'll be Jarno Opmeer, because of course the championship implications, as Longuet opens the door for Istvan Pukki. Can the Mercedes find his way through? Yes, he can. Can Jan head through as well? Not quite. He's going to have to go for an interesting gap around the outside, as it looks like he might actually be trying to fight Pukki a little bit harder than we thought possible. Halliday on the inside has made his way through. Nicholas Longuet goes very wide, and that's not going to help him in his defence of Jarno Opmeer around the final corner, and well, there's going to be a little bit of contact between the two, but no harm done, and they remain slightly wheel hooking as they head down towards the first corner. Longuet is going to take a wide outside line. Jarno Opmeer is going to sweep into it, and he's going to have much better grip into the first corner. Longuet runs wide, he lets the Red Bull through, and that defence, while valiant, didn't last too long.
Indeed, and off the track twice there for Opmeer. That could certainly harm his race if he ends up with a penalty, as Jake Benham looks to make the move. Kian Godendorf goes ahead of Rens Thomas, and of course another driver who is yet to pit in this race, and things could now start to get quite risky for drivers, especially Shanaka and Rens, who have got to be careful where to place the car, because those who are on the newer tyres will be flying up behind them. They've got to be careful that they don't end up blocking drivers off and people taking a bit more speed through and hitting the back of them. As we head out to turn 7, Rens now ahead of Istvan Pukki, who goes ahead of him. Next will be Jan Halliday on the Newer hard tyres, he goes up the inside and runs down to 15th. Of course, for himself, Longate and soon to be Shanaka Clay, they're really out of this race in terms of looking to score points, as they've already been taken over by those in the top 10, as that's going to be a move potentially by Joris Krozen on Shanaka Clay, heading in towards 13 and 14. A slight bit of contact, little bit of contact again, but Joris gets a move done and moves up into 11th. As up the inside goes Pookie into turn 15. That's audacious, but that's a move done.
Yeah, certainly is. It was very, very bold and very brave, but he was able to get it done in the end, as that's going to be Tico Hardy into the pit lane, and that's still side by side into the first corner. Clay trying to get through on Jan Halliday, but of course Jan, with the much better tyres, is able to squeak his way through. Hoendorp now is trying to get onto the back at least on Philip Reschneider. And it's 3 seconds is the gap, as Ismail Fassi and Otis Lawrence have said they needed to work together. They are trying to do so, I think, at this point in time. Lawrence in behind Fassi as they both braked very, very late for turn number 6. And of course, out of turn number 7, they will get the DRS once again. Lawrence 3 tenths back, but he's not going to be close enough. And they don't want to invite Julian Klaffenbach into the fight, because they know Klaffenbach is ahead in the championship. He's 1.2 behind. I think he will pick up that DRS very soon, as there is fights in that middle order still going on. Pookie through on Cruzen and Hofland through on Clay, but they remain side by side. In the end, it is going to be Hofland that comes through. Shanaka Clay makes Hofland defend very late, but the Aston Martin still holds that position. We are over halfway through this race now, and it's going to be the pit window very soon for those hard compound tyre runners, I think. I think it's going to be within the next 4 laps that we'll see the first couple dive in.
Certainly, and our top 3 currently, it's Godendorp, Pookie and Krozen, a very interesting top 3, that is safe to say. It would be brilliant to see Kian take a win here in WOR Tier 1. It would be his first win on only a few appearances so far over the course of the last couple of seasons. Pookie's second has been up on the podium many, many times in the past, and Joris Krozen as well came in his podiums in season 18 and season 16. As we head our way back down towards turn number 5, Halliday as well with the newer tyres compared to Joris. He could go for the attack, and he does go for the attack. Into the braking zone, up the inside goes Jan. It was a very audacious overtake. It didn't pay off, and potentially could put him under pressure here from Jarno Ottmeier as we head back down towards turn 6, but I don't think Ottmeier is quite close enough there to go for the attack, unless he goes for a late move. He went for it and then decided to back out behind the Ferrari. But yet again, you can see there Jan looking to get on the move, couldn't quite make the overtake work, but it seems he's very keen on getting past that Haas car.
Certainly does, and don't blame him, because at this point in time he's only losing time behind him, and of course he wants the highest position possible. Of course he does, and at the moment this is provisionally the fight for 3rd place. It's the fight for 3rd place in this stint anyway, and Fassi and Lawrence will come out behind them most likely, unless they lose a chunk of time. So it's likely that this may well be the fight for 3rd place overall, unless Fassi, Lawrence and Klaffenbach are able to out-strategise. There we go. That is going to be the first pitter on lap number 17 of the hard runners, as that's a late send from Jarno Ottmeier on Jan Halliday. The Red Bull is desperately trying to find his way past the Ferrari, so he made an audacious send into the final corner, but couldn't quite get it done. Jan was able to get the traction on the exit and hold on to the position for the time being. Jake Benham sees the door open for him if there's any mistakes from either of Halliday or Ottmeier as they head down towards turn number 5, but no such mistakes just yet. They may well come on the exit. Cruzen is soaking up all this pressure at the moment, 6 tenths ahead of Jan Halliday, and I don't think that lead is going to last very long, as he hasn't got the slipstream off of Istvan Pookie. Jan Halliday has that DRS but doesn't have that straight line speed, as the 2 Williams ahead of these drivers are going to go side by side, and Hoendorp holds position ahead of Benches Abokonye.
Certainly, and because of the big slowdown from Sabakonye, we saw Jan Halliday nearly force into a move ahead of Joris Krozen as we head down towards turn 9. Jan's on the outside line here as Pookie is getting past Sabakonye, makes that move quite easily. Up into net P2 for the Mercedes. And let's see if Jan Halliday can get that move to pay off. He can't quite do so as Danny Berejnay makes a couple of moves. He's up into P13 as up the inside goes Krozen, and up the inside goes Jan Halliday, both making a move as Julian Klaffenbach, our championship leader, on the way into the pit lane, takes a 3-second time penalty. That could be a race ruiner for him, and of course that could be a big gift for Jarno Ottmeier. As up the inside goes Jake Benham, off the road goes Ottmeier. Hofland is closing in as well, looking to make a move. Let's see who's going to be heading towards turn 1. Hofland's on the outside. has to back out. He can't quite get the run. And Jake Benham there, contact with Uppbeat, and Hofland there looking to capitalise.
Very, very interesting racing, and that 3 second will get removed by the end of the race, so that's not going to cost him too much time, as Julian Klaffenbach is going to come out of the pits in 11th place. He's in behind Otis Lawrence, who's behind Fassi, who is 3.8 off the back of Duncan Hofland. That is what the Ferrari needs to gain on him as they head down the straight. Of course, Hofland will have the DRS, so it's going to benefit him significantly, as that's going to be, I believe, a little bit of desync on my end. I didn't see
Lots of left for me as well there. It was all sideways down the straight.
It seems like that straight's really, it doesn't like that straight today. I'm not sure what's going on.
I mean, this track that used to have that part where the track went black. Was it Abu Dhabi? Was it Silverstone then? That one straight, the track went black.
I think you're right. I think it is. I think it is Abu Dhabi that it did make it go completely black down that straight, because it just, the lights didn't work. No. The budget for EA didn't quite have enough to pay for the lights to stay on every single time you want to open an Abu Dhabi lobby. But now Thomas Ronhaar into the pit lane, so this is going to be the actual order of the race, barring Clay, who fights with Hardy in the final sector. And Hardy is able to get through, of course, with the tyres being so much better. And Nicolas Longue as well hasn't dived in. You'd imagine he will now, as Thomas Ronhaar will fall down the order. Where is the man who's going to have a very short stint on those mediums going to come out? It's not going to be a very positive position for now, but with those tyres, with them being in a very strong position, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to scythe his way through the likes of Hardy very shortly.
Certainly, as we do see Longue take a time penalty. And just a quick thing as well on the Julian Klaffenbach situation. Of course, that penalty can get removed because of the silly warning for entering the pit lane. But if he does get another warning and gets 4 in total, that one removed would still be at 3 seconds. So he can't get any more warnings now. There's a lot of pressure here on Julian to try and get rid of that penalty or not make that penalty apply. As Ismail Fassi, look at that, within a lap, has brought that gap down by 2.5 seconds to Duncan Hofland. But Otis Lawrence is on the attack. I think he was looking to close in, but burnt all the battery, but not quite close enough to make a move. And now, here comes the brigade of the Ferrari, Alpine and Kick Sauber, who should easily fly through the first of these cars in this train.
Yeah, you'd imagine that he would be able to, as he's now just 4 tenths back on Duncan Hofland, and he's going to search for the opportunity out of the final corner, firstly, but then, as I said earlier on in the stream, way earlier on when we were in Q1, I believe, it's going to be down that next straight where he's going to have the prime overtaking opportunity. Fastest lap of the race was Fassi's, but then swap to Otis Lawrence is showing that those medium runners are the quickest of all at this point in time. They've caught up to the DRS range. The top 11 are in it, but I'm not sure how long Danny Beresne is going to be able to hold on to the coattails of Julian Klaffenbach. Shanaka Clay makes the decision to retire in the pit lane. He's not enjoyed his time out there. He was in 17th spot. Fassi makes the first position up, but he's got a lot of work to do to catch up to those podium sitters.
Indeed, as Ismail Fassi there making one move now, eyeing up for the second to get ahead of the McLaren of Jake Benham in towards turn 6. Benham defends the inside. Fassi goes even more to the inside. We'll see them disappear. They'll appear again. Forces to the corner goes Benham to stay ahead, but Fassi gets a better exit of turn 8 and into P6 he goes. Otis Lawrence making a move ahead of Duncan Hofland. He jumps up into 8th as Benham, I think, was looking for another attack but couldn't quite get alongside. As now Otis Lawrence goes ahead of the McLaren. He goes up into 7th place. As we also see Julian Klaffenbach trying to get ahead of Duncan Hofland. He goes to the outside into turn 12, taps the back of Benham. A brilliant angle through there, as that's one car ticked off the list for Julian Klaffenbach. Of course, next for him will be Jake Benham, who he should be able to get past rather easily. Might even go for a lunge into the final corner. No, has to back off there unless he can get a decent exit here to go for the move down to turn 1. He's closing in heavily on Benham, who takes that inside line. He's not letting Julian go for the move, and Julian can't go for the move. He stays in P9 for now, as Ismail Fassi's next target is one of his championship contenders, Jarno Uppbeat. Ismail Fassi is on 67 points. Uppbeat is on 79, so getting ahead here will be crucial for Ismail Fassi if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive with 3 races to go, as we do see Shanaka Clay and Nicolas Longue retire from the race.
Yeah, that makes 3 drivers out of this one, as there's a little bit of weaving down the straight from Julian Klaffenbach and Jake Benham. It's the outside line for Klaffenbach, which is the preferred line, because you get the inside for 7, and that's going to be Julian Klaffenbach through on Jake Benham, and it's a very, very well-managed move, a very clean move from the Kick Sauber, who now sets his sights on chasing Lawrence and Fassi once again. I think these three are going to have to work together. I don't think there's going to be any fighting from them at all, because they're going to be focusing their sights on the hard compound tyre runners, and on, of course, keeping their championship charges alive. Jarno Opmeer is right in that fight. He's the next target up. The other one, Nicolas Longue, he's out of the race, as he was, I believe, waiting for a safety car or something along those lines, or just hoping that that 10-second penalty could manifest itself away, but unfortunately it couldn't, and Nicolas Longue out of the race on lap number 20. We head over to 22 though, and Hundop continues to lead this one. This may well be a very, very strong victory for him. He's got Pookie, Frozen, Halliday and Opmeer all in behind, but Fassi, Lawrence and Klaffenbach, I think, are the drivers that will be in the best position to get through on the Williams heading towards the end of the race.
Certainly, as now comes Ismail Fassi up the inside of Jarno Opmeer. Looks to make the move ahead of the hard-runnered Red Bull. Gets that move complete and into 5th place. Next for him will be his teammate of the night, Jan Halliday. Of course, they're not normally teammates. One's in Aston Martin, one's in Ferrari. Unless Ismail Fassi goes for the move here, no. I think he's just more looking to eye it up potentially down to turn 9 if he can get the better exit out of turn 7 and 8. It's a decent exit, but I don't know if it'll be enough for him to charge forward and make a move. Down towards turn on we go. He's gaining, but I don't think it's enough here to get ahead. Otis Lawrence, however, is looking to go ahead of Jarno Opmeer and does so. Into P6 goes Otis Lawrence, and next for Jarno Opmeer to contend with is Julian Klaffenbach. Of course, these two are fighting for the championship, and Klaffenbach goes ahead. There's no defence at all from Opmeer. There's a penalty so far for Klaffenbach, which can get removed if he receives no more than 3 other warnings. So technically, that is still advantage Klaffenbach.
It certainly is, and I've just had a look at Julian Klaffenbach's race director. He's picked up another warning, so he will not get that penalty removed. Also says he got 6 warnings on his in-lap, so I don't really know how he's managed that one. But yeah, Julian Klaffenbach has picked up another warning that will not be getting removed. So Jarno Opmeer going to try and stay in range with these drivers and hopefully pick up a podium towards the end of this race. Lap 23 or 26, it's all yet to be decided, and Ismail Fassi's next target, his teammate Jan Halliday.
Indeed, as Ismail Fassi is heading his way down towards turn 6 to get ahead of Jan Halliday. He's going to gain as Danny Perez and Jake Benham have a battle with the 2 McLarens. The 2 Ferraris doing the same down to the braking zone as Ismail Fassi there taps the back of Halliday. He's once again looking for a better exit. This time it was a brilliant exit from the Ferrari. It should be an easy move in towards turn 9. He's going to have to hug the outside line here to get ahead of Jan Halliday. He will try and hang it up the inside. We'll see as they make their way through. Sweeps around, and that is move complete for Ismail Fassi. Next on the list is Joris Krozen, and this is now chance for Ismail Fassi to take a podium.
It certainly is the best chance that he's had all race long to get himself legitimately on the podium this time. He went long on that first stint from those hard compound tyres, and now he gets the opportunity to reap the rewards on the mediums. He's got Joris Krozen not too far ahead, as that's Otis Lawrence with its end down to the final corner on Jan. Jan tries to hold himself in, but he hasn't got the traction on the exit, so that's going to be Lawrence through, and Julian Klaffenbach will be looking for the move, the next driver up to try and get through on Jan, and I think he'll make it pretty easy work into the braking zone of turn number 5. Is he going to be on the outside line? Yes, he is, and Jan not going to put up too much of a fight with the Kick Sauber. I don't think he had the ability to, and now he's back in the clutches of Jarno Opmeer. Down the next straight, Ismail Fassi, who continues to push, is going to try and get through on Krozen, and he needs to do this one quickly because Krozen is fading away from the DRS of Istvan Pukki.
He certainly is, as Thomas Ronhaar is looking to also start to make moves. He goes ahead of Duncan Hofland, and next will be Danny Perezhne. Jarno Opmeer is on the back of Jan Halliday. Of course, it's still a battle for 7th there for those two. But of course, with the likes of Ronhaar and Tormula closing in, that could still be a very, very low position for those two in terms of scoring points, as Thomas Ronhaar now enters the top 10. Remember, he qualified last by his own choice. He's gone from 20th to 10th already and still has 5 laps to make many more moves. I think he'll struggle to get ahead of those on the mediums, but those on the hards should be quite an easy move for him as we make our way through in towards 13 and 14, then into 15 and 16. Of course, at the front, it's still Godendorp that leads. Pukki second, Crozen third, and the key reason why they're still where they are is because they didn't fight like what we saw with Opmea, Halliday and Benham earlier on. Because of their fighting, they lost time, and now they're down to 7th, 8th and 9th, whereas the top three are still comfortably there. Of course, Fassi have got better pace, but it seems like at the moment the mediums are now at a bit of a stalemate. Maybe he's overheated them a bit too much on those initial attacks.
Yeah, it's at this point in time where the mediums are supposed to fall off anyway, around lap number 7, maybe lap 8, is when the deficit switches over. But with those hards being so worn, I'm not sure what the sort of crossover point is as they all step out to try and pick up those extra couple of kilometres and slow down their engine heating. And yeah, it's a huge opportunity for Ismail Fassi now over the next couple of laps. If he doesn't do it, then he won't do it at all. And he needs to get through on Joris Cruzen as soon as he possibly can. Is it going to be into the next braking zone of turn number 9? It's not going to be close enough. The slipstream is not going to be powerful enough to drag him through, but it is powerful enough to break free of the DRS of Otis Lawrence and Julian Klaffenbach. So these two might have to settle for battling for 5th place here, with just over a second splitting Lawrence and Fassi. This is a crucial couple of corners in this Grand Prix as to whether they can make their way back into the slipstream of Fassi, and it looks like they've done so, as Cruzen was slow in the last couple of corners, and Fassi gets closer than ever to the back of the Haas, and Istvan Pukki in himself is closer than ever to the back of Rudendorp.
Certainly, as we do see Thomas Ronhaar further back, looking to make the move ahead of Jake Benham and solidify himself into 9th as Fassi goes ahead and goes into 3rd place, goes for ascent into turn 1. Move made, 3rd place for Ismail Fassi here as we head back down towards turn number 5. Can Otis Lawrence now look to try and break and get ahead of Joris Cruzen as they head onto the brakes? Not quite yet, but he's all over the rear of the Haas. Has got to wheel up the inside on the exits of turn 5, and now we'll look for an easy move down towards turn number 6. Of course, further back we can see Thomas Ronhaar still looking to make a move on Jake Benham, as we do see Pukki take the lead ahead of Kian Godendorp. But everybody's looking to make a move here on lap 26 as we all make our way through. Klaffenbach now is next to go past Joris Cruzen. That will then put him into P5. But of course the penalty for him should drop him, unfortunately, outside of the top 10, I think.
Yeah, it's not looking great. Klaffenbach ahead of Cruzen. I did actually have another look because I didn't quite trust the race director. One of those 3 warnings has now disappeared. So Klaffenbach doesn't actually have that penalty after all that. So I'm not sure what on earth happened with that one. But he still has those 6 warnings from that same lap. So maybe one of them is actually a proper warning. Berejnay and Ronhaar still remain side by side for this 10th spot. Ronhaar, of course, on the mediums. But Berejnay's hard compound tyres aren't too bad. He went very deep into the stint. And now the McLaren is behind Ronhaar, but with a very, very good opportunity down the next straight if he doesn't get swallowed up by Duncan Hoffland for 12th place. So fight still on throughout the grid. This has been a scintillating race.
It certainly has been, and we're on 2 laps to go now as Klaffenbach is closing in on the back of Otis Lawrence. He's looking to go for a move. He's going to go to the outside. He nearly taps the back of the Alpine into the braking zone, but luckily doesn't end up getting any damage or any severe contact. It was a close call indeed between Lawrence and Klaffenbach, and Klaffenbach closing in again down towards turn 6. I don't think it's enough though to really go for a send. He has to just stay back and wait for another opportunity. As Cruzen's now lost the DRS, he goes back within it, but I'm sure he'll lose it again on the exit. He certainly does, and there that could be race over for Cruzen in terms of looking to push forward. Ronhaar still stuck in 10th. His progress has been halted there. He's going to struggle to go further ahead. Of course, started last, P10 still. A decent race for him as Klaffenbach closes in on Lawrence, who's looking to close in on Fassi. And then, of course, up at the front, it's Pukki who still leads ahead of Godendorp. Those two have led brilliantly since lap 1. They've done a superb job, and it would also be quite a shame to actually see them lose their podiums or potential P1 and 2 to Ismail Fassi. But strategies have been in the hands of those gone from hard to medium rather than the medium to hard as we begin lap 28.
I'm not sure whether they're going to be overtaken, you know. I think the teamwork from them is going to be enough to carry them through. The power of friendship may well see Istvan Pukki and Pookie Hundorp winning this race into the last 2 laps of it. Ismail Fassi 4/10 back, but I don't think those tyres are going to be as advantageous as they were at the early point of the stint. There's only a 7-lap difference between them, and I mean those mediums aren't quite as good. So it all comes down to the ERS battles, who's been able to manage. And I know for a fact that Pookie and Hundorp, they've not been fighting as much as Fassi, Lawrence and Klappenbach have. So these three, I think, have expended all they can. It's now down to trying to hold on to that DRS in terms of trying to take this victory and trying to make the most of it. But Pookie and Hundorp will be patting each other on the back at the end of this race, because they've done so incredibly well to fight with each other. And well, I say fight with each other, they've been fighting with each other against everybody else, and they've done a sensational job of it. And Ismail Fassi 3/10 back, who's not got much of an opportunity to go here under the lights in Abu Dhabi, but he's certainly going to give it his best shot.
He certainly will. So very shortly we look to begin lap 29 of 29. The battle goes between our top three, Pookie, Godendorp and Fassi. Of course, it's Mercedes, Williams and Ferrari as we head on to the final lap of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Of course, Otis Lawrence and Julian Klappenbach looming around in the top 5, but I don't think they'll be looking to make any moves further ahead in this race. Of course, we can see there Pookie's really got onto the burners heading out of turn 1. He's brought that gap up to 6/10 ahead of Cian Godendorp, who will be looking for it again down towards turn 6. He'll be looking to make that move and go into the lead of the race, or potentially wait once more and go for the move down towards turn 9 as Jan Halliday is battling it out with Joris Krozen on newer tyres. Jan Halliday goes ahead. Now, can Godendorp close in? The gap is still at 6/10. It's going to go down to 5 by the time they head onto the brakes, and I think that might be it here. I don't know if there'll be any chance here for Godendorp to make a charge after Istvan Pookie, as we now head back down towards turn 9 for the final time in this race. The gap's 5/10. It's going to come down to 4, potentially 3, but I don't think it'll be enough for Godendorp to go ahead. Not enough slipstream for him to make the move, as Joris Krozen now gets overtaken by Jarno Opmeer as they still carry it side by side. But as we go back to the front of the field, what a race for Istvan Pookie. It's not been his best season. He's not scored that many points actually compared to many others. As we make our way through in towards the final couple of corners we go. What a race for Pookie it has been. Of course, has been in the top 3 ever since the start. He'll head out to the final corner. He'll cross the line to win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And from second on the grid on his 3rd race in T1 this season, Godendorp takes second, with Ismail Fassi taking out the top 3. Of course, on that alternate strategy, it's worked out for him. He finishes 3rd. And of course, with a penalty for Klappenbach, he's 13th. If he gets removed, he'll be up into P5.
Yes, very, very good race from Pookie and Hundorp. Just so very well managed for the Mercedes and the Williams to take each other to the top. And, well, that makes the standings very, very interesting. Nobody in the top few able to take full opportunity of racing this time around, and take full opportunity of Nicolas Longuet not being able to race this time out. And, well, we've got Pookie and Hundorp taking the 1 and 2. Fassi, who's the driver in championship contention in the highest position in 3rd place. Otis Lawrence in 4th. Jan Halliday with a sensational 5th, but that might be taken off him if Julian Klappenbach didn't actually get those warnings, which I don't think he did, having a look at the race director last time I did. And then it's going to be Jarno Opmeer in 6th place, so not quite made the inroads he wanted to. Then Krozen, Ronhart and Berezhny to round out the top 10. And Hofland, Tormala, Hardy, Klappenbach, who of course couldn't get it removed or not. Zabo Konyi, Prejenader and Rens Thomason to round out the finishers.
Well, I have some news regarding the championship. So, if the penalty stays for Julian Klappenbach, we have got a very, very interesting final few races to come up, because it means Jarno Opmeer takes the lead of the championship on 87 points. 2nd place will be Julian Klappenbach on 85, and 3rd will be Ismail Fassi on 85 points. 2 points separating the top 3 with 3 rounds to go. Of course, that is subject to Julian's penalty if he gets removed. The points is still going to be very similar, but of course Julian Klappenbach will gain that advantage back again.
Certainly will be. Make sure to keep an eye on all of the World Online Racing socials, and make sure to tune in next week as well, because then you'll get. There's plenty of ways that you can get your answers decided, and well, the link tree is in the description if you want to go and have a look at those socials. Drop us a follow to make sure you don't miss it, and well, we will see what we'll see if we're able to get a chance to speak to anybody who is sitting on the podium, and we'll see whether they want to come and join us for an interview. I'd be interested in Julian Klaffenbach, but I know that's not quite how that works, and it's only because I want an instant answer for what happened with the penalty. Because I mean, 6 warnings on 1 lap, that surely isn't a game glitch. That's crazy.
Yeah, that it always happens down at the pit lane. It's happened ever since F124. For some reason, you get warnings galore for entering the pit lane, as we are hopefully waiting to hear off a couple of our drivers on the podium. It'd be great to see at least one of them in for a chat. We had a very quiet podium interview room last week, and then before that we've had quite active ones. So it's quite a shame not to see many drivers up to come in for a chat, but hopefully we'll hear from Pookie Godendorp, Ishmael Fassi. Pookie will join us. We'll drag him in very shortly. Great to hear from Istvan as always. And then we'll drag him in when he pops into the interview room. And sometimes they tend to not be able to find the channel for some reason. And Ishmael says, I'm done with this game. I don't think I can blame him there. I presume it's the fact that even though he was on better tyres, he couldn't make the move ahead of unfortunately, the top 2. But we'll bring in Istvan. Istvan, can you hear us?
Hello. Yep,
Perfect.
I can.
Welcome in. Great to have you back with us. Of course, it's been a little bit of a quiet season for you. Of course, you took a podium back at the start of the season, and then since then you haven't been on the podium at all. And of course, now you take away a win. First win of the season. How does that feel?
It feels great, especially after such a period I had, as you said. And I knew it would come because I know the reasons why that period has happened. And it's up in deep. My PC was just not capable of running the game smoothly.
Yeah.
But luckily, there was upgrades on that front, and since that has happened, my chances for podiums became back as well. So yeah, very happy.
Certainly. But of course, as I said, you've had a bit of not the best seasons both here and in PSGL. So now the PC's sorted. Does that mean you're going to be back to where you were on F124 and back in F1 sim racing?
In the last 1 or 2 weeks, it seems like definitely yes, and I will just keep working harder and harder to show and trust myself and be confident ahead of the season as well.
Yeah.
So I'm very confident, and yeah, I'm waiting for the next 2 races as well.
Certainly. And of course, in this race particularly, overtaking was quite difficult. At any point, was you ever worried about Ishmael and Otis closing in, or did you know because of the way the slipstream works in the DRS, you were quite confident that you could still keep a top 2?
No, I was not confident at all in keeping the top 2 because I saw Ismail in P5 like lap 22 or lap 23, and the pace and how easy he was overtaking cars in the first few laps, it was just crazy to me. And obviously, I was expecting that as well, but I didn't expect them to fall off that much. So it was unexpected for me. I think the one or two laps that Jan could could keep behind Ismail, those 1 or 2 laps was very crucial for us. And also Kian in P1 was not saving that much of the tires, I think, or I don't know his take on this, but I didn't feel like he's saving a lot. So the pace of the train was quite alright, and we didn't bunch up like we did yesterday, and that was the key for making the undercut work now.
Certainly. And of course, next week we head off to Silverstone, a track that's been on the game and has been featured in WOR pretty much all seasons since we started. Heading into that one, how do you expect to see the race in there? Is there going to be a lot of overtaking, or is it another one of those
No,
tracks where you can't make a move?
I think if you have to pick 3 tracks where the overtaking is the hardest on this game, Silverstone would be one of those because
Oh.
there's just so many high speed corners before the main overtaking spots that, and in this game in the high speed it's kind of impossible to follow. So unless there is big tire differences, I would not expect too much overtaking, unluckily. But you never say never. So maybe we will have the most exciting race, especially if there is some rain, maybe.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Certainly, I'm sure we will somewhere get a surprise in that one. But of course, Istvan, as always, congratulations on the win, and of course, thanks for joining us in for an interview. Hopefully, we'll see you next time out in Silverstone, mate. Have a good one. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. See you guys.
Right, and there we go. Great to speak with Istvan there, Joseph. Unfortunately, nobody else joins, which is a shame. I'm thinking, I might say to Luke, can we start asking people further down the order to pop in for an interview so we can at least get 3 in?
Yeah, I was hoping for Julian, of course, as I said, but unfortunately we haven't. And of course, a couple of weeks ago, Jake Benham, who didn't race, joined the interview room, and I was hoping that we'd be allowed to. He did. He joined the waiting for interview room.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately we weren't allowed to ask him about the race because he didn't race. So, but maybe that could be a thing we start. He could be like our Ted Kravitz.
Oh, we'll have to get that, won't we? We'll have to get Brendan Lee or something to be able to take Kravitz for the evening. I'm sure that gave us enough insight. But, well, that's enough from us here this evening. Of course, a big thank you for everybody joining along here for WOR Tier 1. Round number 10, of course, we head off to Silverstone next time out. We'll have a quick look at the calendar. Of course, November 13th. Then we head off to Belgium and then Bahrain to end off the season. So a big thanks to everybody as usual. Of course, a big thank you to you, Joseph, alongside me in the commentary box. We'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Thursday, November 13th. Make sure you're back here again as we head to round 11 for the championship, where we have 3 drivers who are within 3 points in the championship. Have a good one. Have a good week, and we'll see you then. Good night.